Success is being able to do the things that you love. Everybody wants to lose weight. Everybody has anxiety. Most people want to be loved.
You worked on the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah, that was my first job out of college. The things I was doing were absolutely not normal in a workplace. Here's some petty cash. Here's some smokes. Go take them around Chicago. Keep them entertained. Come back when we tell you. Wow, how do you get those people to come? How do I get on the phone and make friends with these people and present stories in a way where they want to bring the people that I'm talking to? If you can't book a story, you're out the door. Slam doors. He definitely smoked cigars. His room was dark and scary. There was a lot of drinking going on. The office life and the show life definitely bled into each other. I asked Jerry, I was like, did you have any idea what it took to get those guests on that stage? And he did. He
Yeah.
didn't know who was coming on the show until 5 minutes before he went out on stage.
So we've got a very special guest today. Her name is Reena. Thank you so much for being on the show. Just to give you a brief overview of what the show is. So it's called the Self-Study Show. And the reason behind that is because it promotes personal growth by self-discovery. Therefore, my message is the better you know yourself, the more you know how to put yourself to work so you can work on the things that you want to work on, because success is personal, right? Success is different for every person. So let's start there. What do you think of success?
Yeah,
What do
for
you
me, success is being able to do the things that you love. And podcasting is one of those things. So I feel successful in that I've now interviewed over 400 people. And I've done that alongside my father. And we've gotten to create a show together in my 40s. Like, what a special thing to do. Like, technology has come to the place where anybody can buy a microphone, have an internet connection, use a lot of free tools, and learn how to edit and create their own show, have their own voice, have their own journey, figure out who they are in the process of doing that. And the more that you talk to other people, especially people from different walks of life that have had a different experience that you've had, you can really learn from that in so many ways. Just this week, I interviewed a former Jerry Springer guest. We've both seen the behind the scenes of the Jerry Springer show because I worked on it. It was my first job out of college. His name is Big Baby Zach. He was a baby on the Jerry Springer show, the 70-pound baby. And then 20 years later, they invited him back on. So he's had two experiences with the show. And then not only did I work on the show, but I got to interview Jerry before he passed away in 2022. I interviewed Jerry. So it was interesting to hear his thoughts on the documentary that just came out and then, what he's learned in interacting with celebrities, what it's like to be a giant, how he's gone from being 500 pounds to half of that weight, what he struggles with. Because I think, we all struggle with things, but there's so many things that are universal that we can all relate to. Like everybody wants to lose weight. Maybe not 250 pounds, but maybe 40 pounds. Everybody has anxiety. How do you deal with anxiety? I feel like most people want to be loved. Most people want to partner up. A lot of people want to have kids. So it's like I'm a mom of four. He's now getting engaged, right? So it's like talking about these different big moments in our life. And how did you approach that? What are you struggling with? How are you going to do that? And just getting feedback about how other people navigated these situations can help you in navigating situations.
Yeah, that's really a good point because like we are sometimes we feel quite alone, but actually when we start talking to other people, we actually find that they have a lot of the same self-doubt and worries and things that we have, and they also want similar outcomes to us. So yeah, that's a great story there about the Jerry Springer. I was going to come round to that. So you worked on the Jerry Springer show. Tell
I
us a bit
did.
more about that.
Yeah, that was my first job out of college and quite a learning experience. both good and bad. Um, I was working at a radio station in college and thought I wanted to work in radio. And I actually drove up to Chicago from Purdue and interviewed at a radio station that was right across the courtyard from Jerry Springer. And I didn't get the radio job, but I saw that Jerry Springer was looking for interns. So I walked across the same courtyard on the same trip and got through to the intern coordinator. And they asked me if I could start 2 weeks later, which was right around the time that I was graduating. And I took an internship there. I really did not know anyone in Chicago. I definitely moved there with stars in my eyes and was willing to work around the clock. I'm talking 80 to 100 hours a week to learn the role. I wanted to have my own office in NBC Tower, and I was pretty much willing to be insane and work those hours and do whatever it took to get that.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. And at the time, was Jerry Springer like a big show at that time? Or
Yeah. I didn't even
yeah,
realize, to be honest, how big of a show it was.
yeah.
I didn't realize that the things I was doing were absolutely not normal in a workplace. I was just doing what it took to make the show happen and following what other people in the office were doing. I was listening to how people were speaking to people on the phone. I started off as an intern where it was my job to just take the guests out. So the first part of my job for the first couple of months was like, here's some petty cash, here's some smokes, go take them around Chicago, learn your way around, keep them entertained, and come back when we tell you. So that was fun. I was like, I'm new to the city. I'll eat what you're eating. I'll smoke what you're smoking. I'll go to House of Blues with you. Right. So in the beginning, it was just kind of hanging with the people that other people got to come. Then it was, wow, how do you get those people to come? How do I get on the phone and make friends with these people and present stories in a way where they want to bring the people that I'm talking to? So, talk about self discovery. It was like, what do I say? How do I make the person feel on the other line to make them want to come? How do I pitch the people that I'm working for that these are the right stories to come? There was a lot of components to that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you had growth within the role because the first your first role you said was like quite fun, taking them out, socializing more than anything else. And then you were given more and more responsibility. So then you had to personally grow in order to undertake those tasks and develop those new skills, I take it.
That's a great way to paraphrase it. And not only was I developing new skills, but there was a definite added amount of a lot of pressure. So I went from intern to producer in one season. And then I went through about seven associate producers on the next season. When I was a producer, I went through seven associate producers because if you can't book a story, you're out the door. And so I was kind of like, I know how to book the stories, I know how to brief the stories, I know how to get the stories. And if you don't, knock on my door when you have a story, or I'm gonna just do it myself. I was not a good manager. I was actually like insane.
So the associates were underneath you. Yeah. And did you have that guy sort of above you? I watched a documentary recently, like this, they kept calling him the scary guy.
Oh, he was completely feared. Richard Dominic, yeah.
That's right,
Like you
yeah.
did not want to end up in that guy's office. He definitely slammed doors. He definitely smoked cigars. His room was dark and scary. And you wanted to have a good show, so you didn't end up there.
So in order to get these stories and stuff like that, that must have been, did they come to you or did you sort of seek these stories out?
Yeah, the majority of the stories came from people calling into the show at that time. There
Right.
was a 1-800-96 Jerry number that we used to fight over the people that would call that number because there were limited people who called that number every week. We were calling back hundreds of stories a week. Um, and they called those the carts. They were like a recording, and we would go through all the recordings. Actually, I think the interns and the production assistants, they would take the messages down, and the production assistants or the associate producers would call those back. try to bust out the story to make sure they were telling the truth or not. And then the good stories would be then pitched to the producers.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you would have to then pitch that to the producers as well. So it's kind of another skill there again, really, isn't that? That's like the
Right. You have to convince them that they're worth spending the budget on and
that.
that they're going to deliver on stage. And you have to kind of like pump them up before they talk to the producer to like help them tell their story in the best way possible because you're selling them.
Mm.
And we had to rate them. Like, we would be asked, is that a 10 guest? Is that a 7 guest? And you're like, that's the freaking only guest I can find. That's a 10. You know what I mean? Like,
You had to like make them a 10.
exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes after the show didn't go as planned, they're like, how come you told me that person was a 7? I'm thinking to myself, well, shit. I didn't want to lose my job. Like,
Yeah. So it sounds like you had to do so much growth within that. And with it being such like a big show at the time, the pressure to continue doing that. How did you kind of deal with that pressure and that workflow? And there must be a lot of strong mindset behind that.
or a lot of cigarettes. I was smoking
Yeah.
2 packs of cigarettes a day and other unhealthy habits. Yeah. It was not something that you can keep up long term, to be honest. I mean, if you watch the documentary, you saw like Toby was supposedly an alcoholic, but there was a lot of drinking going on. The office life and the show life definitely bled into each other.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you are who you surround yourself by. You're hearing these stories day in and day out, and you're only hanging out with the crew. I mean, it was a 7 day a week job. You worked 9 months straight and then got summer break off like a teacher, but you needed that seven, you needed those 3 months off to just decompress, and it was really hard to turn off.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. It sounded crazy on that documentary that I watched. It just crazy the behind the scenes of it. Because you just don't think of that as a viewer. I remember watching it years ago, like I was really young, but I remember it on. You don't think about the behind the scenes stuff and
No.
how crazy that was.
And
And
that's something I always even wanted to know. Like, and I asked Jerry, I was like, did you have any idea what it took to get those guests on that stage? And he did. I mean, my God, he was on the air for 27 years, but it's, it was madness.
yeah, because on the documentary, to me, it kind of come across like Jerry didn't almost know some of the stuff that was going on. It was more the other guy, but they might have made it just look that way.
Well, not only that, but it's like there's a difference between knowing and being a part of it. Like he really just showed up to host the show. Like the producers were in charge of what stories came. He
Yeah,
didn't know who was coming on the show until 5 minutes before he went out on stage.
right. Okay.
We kind of briefed him backstage, like with their names and how long they had been together and who they were going home with, you know. But a lot of how Jerry was on stage is that it was improv. He was just such a professional and he had so many funny like one-liners and he was able to really just be himself out there.
Yeah. So with your job as well, then, because you had to find some of the guests and the stories, did you write like the like the
The
tagline?
chirons or the titles, yeah, we
Yeah,
got to participate in that. Yeah, that was fun.
yeah, because
I
they all
remember
on
one of
screen, like they would just sort of catch you couldn't help but stare at them, I found.
oh yeah, some of the headlines were amazing. I remember one of mine was the Springer Showdown, or you could just like take something that's in the news and add a Springer twist to it. Um, My grandma stole my man,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. That was one of my best shows, and it was part of like the 25th anniversary of like some of Jerry's best stories. Was like a 14-year-old girl that called the show and said that she caught her grandmother in bed with her boyfriend and suspected that her mom was sleeping with him too, and it turned out to be true. It was pretty crazy.
right. And those headlines. they sound easy, they sound simple, but there's actually quite a lot of skill. Did you have to learn all of that as well?
Oh, yes. Many of my ideas were red penned or revised.
Yeah. Because the is it Donald? Is that who's the scary guy?
Richard Dominic was the executive producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because didn't he like kind of come from newspapers or something beforehand?
Yes, he was working in the tabloids. That's correct.
He was good at all those headlines and
He
things.
definitely was, but he had a senior producer, Rochelle Consiglio. She wasn't really part of the documentary, and she was very much involved with the titles and the chyrons and all of that as well. She definitely checked everything before it went out.
Yeah. So was that like your first job?
Yeah,
It
that
was,
was my
yeah.
very first job out of college. Yeah.
Okay, so like you say, you didn't really know no different with all this crazy stuff happening around you. You just thought it was normal and it was just happens in every sort of environment. Is that the kind of how you thought?
Yeah, there were moments though where I was kind of like, okay, this seems like beyond the call of duty. You know what I mean? Like it's like, none of my friends are doing this in their jobs. Yeah.
So then, sorry, how long did you work there for?
I was there for 2 full seasons and then the start of a third season. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think I've gotten my fill of this. And so I moved to LA and kind of started all over again, you know. I did get back into production, but I tried lots of different parts of production. So I first started off as an executive assistant to three very seasoned producers, and I worked at like a special effects animation company because these guys ran a family run business and it was a animator, a director, and a producer, and they were all brothers. And I had worked on their names were the Kyoto brothers. I've actually interviewed them now and they've done some really cool things like Killer Clowns from Outer Space and Team America, and they've done like marionette puppets, and they're kind of like the puppet producers in Hollywood. They did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle heads. And so working there, I got to kind of learn the business side of working in Hollywood. I did a lot of their accounts payable and receivable and location scouting and that kind of stuff, which I had never really seen. I did weekly budgets for my shows at Springer, but I had never really seen like a pilot budget and what that looked like and all of the players involved in that and all of the payroll behind that and just, all of the scripts that are written. And that was really interesting. And then I also learned so many different roles within production that I might want to try. So like I worked on a couple short films as like a script supervisor, and then I've worked as an assistant editor, and then I worked as, a field interviewer, and I tried lots of different things to see kind of like what I liked and what I didn't like. There was definitely a lot of self-discovery there. Like the script supervisor thing, wasn't such a fan of that. But it did introduce me to kind of the post-production side of things. And like everyone in Hollywood wants to be a producer. In fact, I feel like everybody has their own producer card. They're like, I'm a producer, I'm a producer. But if you can learn the post-production side of things, when a show that you're working on doesn't get picked up, you can stay employed. So I ended up kind of breaking back into working in production through the post-production route. I got hired working on Nanny 911 for 3 seasons as a post-production supervisor, where I took a third shift job working from 7 at night till 7 in the morning because it was a 24-hour operation where a lot of the editors worked at night.
Right.
So I was kind of like a second set of eyes to the editors and just kind of like found out from the editors like what they didn't like doing and how could I make their job easier and, you know, get the deliverables out the door. It was more of like a supervise the voiceover sessions, be a second set of eyes for somebody who's edited this thing 20 times, do their payroll for them if they don't really want to fill out a time card. Um, Go to color correction and supervise that. It was a lot of managing deliverables and doing things to keep it all flowing.
Keep it all flowing. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that takes a lot of, yeah, self-discovery because it's different skills, isn't it? And do you recommend then just to like do these different things? Yeah. Do you
Oh
find
yeah.
just do these different things and then you'll find growth and you'll find what you really love to do type thing?
That has definitely been the story of my life. Like after Hollywood even, I met my husband working. I met him online, but I was on the third season of Nanny 911 and he was in grad school and I felt like I had gotten Hollywood kind of like out of my system, although you never really will. And we ended up meeting, getting engaged 4 months later, getting married 4 months after that, having three kids in like 4.5, 5 years, knocked out that chapter. Then I tried corporate America for a bit. I worked for a telecom company. I worked for a financial firm. Then I've worked for a couple like big podcasters and entrepreneurs. And then I was like, let me try entrepreneurship. Let me get life insurance licensed. Let me try to put on my own events. I think the more things that you try, you're exercising different parts of your gifts.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So corporate America, how did that sound? That didn't sound like a good one.
So
Skimmed over
corporate
that bit.
America is interesting, but I'm not good at navigating the politics, to be honest. Like when I see things that are hypocritical, I have a hard time not asking about that or keeping my mouth shut or, not getting in trouble for asking questions. I did it for about a year and a half. And to be honest, another piece of that was I took a train, downtown, and then I had to take another train back. And if you miss the train, then I'm juggling a nanny to watch my kids or to pick up my kids. And that just became like really crazy. So then I looked for something closer to home and I found like a similar role at a financial firm. Like I went from being a program manager slash like internal communications person at a telecom company to then being a director of communications and marketing for a smaller financial firm. And the skills are transferable. Look, if you're putting on a lunch and learn at a telecom company, you can put on a steak dinner, insurance dinner at a financial firm, right? It's all about making people your friend, telling them about the event, marketing the event, making the event seeming like something that people want to attend, and getting people to show up and have a good time. So I tried that. I didn't really like either one of those verticals, to be perfectly honest. I think I equate entrepreneurship to kind of like freelance entertainment work.
Okay. Because there's a lot more freedom in it, isn't there? I've been an
Yeah.
entrepreneur for like, yeah, about 14 years now. And I think we all go into it thinking we're gonna have more money, more holidays and things like that, but that doesn't happen right away. You have less, but then you do have the freedom to do things as well. So I would always prefer to be an entrepreneur over being an employee every day of the week because when you're an employee, like you say, you've got politics and things like that. At least when you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of making the rules as you go and you can change them.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
That's how I
I've
feel.
I've thought about joining corporate America or taking a 9 to 5. I mean, I think everybody likes the steady paycheck, likes you know, the routine of things, but it's it's a grind. It's a grind. And I like to mix things up. That's why in Hollywood, I didn't mind if I worked on a show for 2 or 3 seasons and then bounced to another show. Like I like new projects. I like new experiences. I don't mind working project based and then moving on. I also don't mind taking a client and helping them for 6 months and then them outgrowing me and me introducing them to somebody else. I am totally okay with that. Or, you know,
It's that variety rather than the repetition that,
yeah.
like you said, it's a grind. It's kind of like even if you're a hard worker, you're kind of pushing the energy out. It's hard to, you can still do it, but it's a drain, isn't it? Whereas when you're an entrepreneur and you're actually making your own decisions, I find that energy flows a lot better. You've got more energy if you like, you know. It's like when I don't need to work, I work harder. But if I need to be somewhere, I don't really want to be there. Do you know what I mean?
I really do. I really do. Because to be perfectly honest, yeah, I'm kind of in that situation. Like, I could take one or two more clients, but I don't have to. And I think it's good to be able to be picky, right? I think
Sure.
do something that you're going to be really passionate about doing and that you're going to give 100% to. And it's even with my podcast now, like I literally have more people that reach out to me than I can even respond to at this point. And I could hire, like somebody off of Fiverr just to respond to everybody and calendar everybody out. But also, you can make yourself not available and you can schedule in cush time and you can do things that enrich you. Like you don't have to drain yourself. For me, it's not about making $1 million. Like you asked me in the beginning, what is success? Success is being able to connect with who you want to connect with, do the work that fulfills you, also be a good wife, also be a good mom, also have time to get on the damn treadmill, read a book, go meet somebody for a random coffee. If I have that life, that's majorly successful.
Yeah, exactly. Success is personal, isn't it?
Very.
Everyone needs to define their own version of success, I believe, because otherwise you don't know what it means to you. And this is where people can get easily distracted. They start looking at their Instagram feed and start seeing pictures of yachts, Louis Vuitton handbags, and holiday destinations. And then they think, oh, that's success. And then they find themselves walking around the holiday destination not feeling happy. Do you know what I mean? Because they haven't defined it for themselves. It's someone else's idea that they bought into. So this individualism is really important.
It's doing things that you didn't think. I don't know why my camera keeps doing that. Sorry. It's doing things that you didn't think that you were capable of doing too. It's like meeting new challenges and it's continuing to learn and make yourself a better person. I was just listening to a podcast right before this about a woman who left being Muslim and she was like married to somebody in Al Qaeda. I was like, wow, I would love to interview somebody like that. Not even to just like pry, but just to even let her tell her story and expose that to my audience, like just to even connect with people like that. Wow. So,
Yeah.
so fascinating. I mean, she wrote her book under a pen name and, she was anonymous for so long, but she's like, my voice has been silenced for years. She's like, now nobody's putting baby in the corner. She was like, I am going to talk and not be silenced. That's success. I mean,
Sure.
to be able to express yourself freely and talk about your experience in your own words and your own truth, I see that as complete success. And you can't even do that in the corporate space. I have people that haven't been able to be on my podcast because of where they work.
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to be in that situation.
I love what you said there as well about it's about trying new experiences so you can become a different person. I love that. A lot of people won't try new experiences. Why do you think that is?
Fear,
Yeah.
100% fear. I mean, I love my parents, but like they've lived in Kentucky my entire life. Like there's something beautiful about that. Like I love going home and my room still looks like it did when I was in fifth grade. Like same carpet, same stuff pinned to the wall, like, photographs that I took during certain moments. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been married for 18 years now and I think I've moved 11 times or something like that. It's made my kids a lot more resilient. We're actually getting ready to move again. And there's something beautiful to that too. Just like getting rid of stuff, decluttering, opening a new chapter, showing them that they don't have to be so attached to things.
Hmm.
What is it about? It's about your home is where you are. Your home is the choices that you make and who you're surrounding yourself by and what you're doing.
Yeah. So where do you think that fear comes from?
Judgment, shame.
And how should people handle that fear, do you feel?
Mm, it's a process. You have to become more and more comfortable with yourself. It's just the whole purpose of your podcast right now. Self-discovery is a lifelong journey. And you have to get feedback from people who have seen you in your best light and know your best self that can remind you of who that is and support you through difficult chapters. Like if it weren't for my dad, like I literally call him multiple times a day. There's nothing I can say to that guy where he's going to think I'm bad. I've called him in all kinds of situations. In fact, when I told him I was going to go take a job at the Jerry Springer show, he was like, "That sounds awesome." He encouraged it, you know? Some parents would be totally judgmental of that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you strike me as someone as being like a fierce action taker. You take loads of action. Would you say that is a good way to tackle fear? Because you probably felt fear with some of the things you've done, but have you felt that you've lessened it just by literally taking action?
100% action is a great way to get over fear, and I am such a busy person. Like I said, I'm a wife, I'm a mom of four, I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm constantly doing a lot of things. So if I have an idea of something that excites me or something that I want to try, I either put it on my calendar so that it's going to happen, or I freaking just do it right then and there and I don't overthink it, because what's the worst thing that can happen? You're going to learn a lesson from it.
Yeah.
I can give you an example of that. So, I met this guy recently at a real estate like showing or something. There was like this real estate party here in town. And then we got into conversation. He was a realtor, but I got invited by a podcaster that worked with a realtor. And he told me that he like did a stint in Hollywood and that he does Michael Jackson impersonations. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "That is freaking awesome. I should shoot you like around town at different like meetups or small businesses, just like putting on your Michael Jackson glove and like doing a little or something, you know?" And so yesterday we met up at Starbucks and he's got himself on Cameo now. He goes by what is it? Uh, Michael Jackson Realtor or something on TikTok. I'll have to send you his contact information to drop in the show notes. But yeah, this company called Bumble Ceramics like reached out to him and was like, "Hey, we haven't been getting like a lot of traction on our TikTok lately. Could you just like put on your Michael Jackson glove and say like and subscribe and do a little Michael Jackson move or something?" And I was like, "Even better. My kid just made me this bumblebee. How about let's go drink coffee? I'll sting you with the bee and then you can do the little, well, So it's just have a wild idea, entertain it, and try it. You're going to get feedback. The more you test things, like I listened to a webinar today about LinkedIn. They said to post at least 2 videos a week because you're not going to have anything to measure it against if you don't try frequently. Like I can tell you what works and what doesn't work from episodes that I've done because I've done 400 of them. I know which titles work. I know which kind of guests work. I know which kind of subjects got more listens, right?
Yeah, and that helps you more than, let's say, your study of it. If you hadn't taken action and not done the 400 episodes, you wouldn't have the data, you know. But if you studied that entire time about how to, run a successful podcast, you wouldn't have made the progress. You know?
Exactly. I feel like learn as you go.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hire coaches, you can become a masterful editor. What's funny is the stuff that you just shoot on your cell phone when you're having a funny creative idea gets way more likes than if you make beautiful graphics on Canva and do your hair with makeup.
Crazy, isn't it? So
Yeah.
your podcast, what's your podcast about?
Yeah. So thank you for asking. Better Call Daddy is a podcast with my dad. My original idea was kind of alongside my experience from Jerry Springer. I was like, oh, I can book wild and crazy stories. And then instead of Jerry doing the final thought at the end, my dad can. But what it pivoted to, and I did kind of book some of those wild and crazy stories at the beginning of my podcast, I've definitely shifted now. What it's more shifted into is like there's a lot of other daddy's girls, there's a lot of inspirational fathers, or there's people that don't even have a relationship with their dad. So I like kind of covering the daddy angle too. I feel like that is kind of a hook now to my show is like, hey, I interview interesting and controversial people, but at the same time, I want to know what your dad like. Was he around? Did you have a good relationship with him? Is there anything you want to ask my dad that he might be able to weigh in on your life or offer you a little bit of daddy wisdom on? So it's kind of morphed into that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like it's taken a journey again. So it keeps coming back to this, doesn't it? You've got to just start and then you'll find your way as you go. As you said, learn on the job. So is that what you primarily do? Like, your podcast is, do you do coaching and things like that as well?
Yeah, so I do help people that want to start a podcast if, they need to know kind of the basics of how to get started. I do work with people one on one. And then I also kind of have like a done for you model. If you just want to hit record and have it edited and have the graphics done for you and the music done for you and all of that, I also offer those kinds of services.
Okay, awesome. So where's the best place for people to find you?
I am on all social media under Reena Friedman Watts, and you can also go to bettercalldaddy.com and find me that way as well.
Okay. Well, that's the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming on, Rena. It's been great hearing about Jerry Springer and your story. It's so inspirational. And also, you've taken so many twists and turns. It's so good that you just keep pivoting and just rolling with it to find out, you know, that's what life is, isn't it? Life just knocks us this way, that way, and we've got to respond, adapt, and grow with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You're an awesome host, and I love how well you're able to like paraphrase and weave everything together. And I really enjoyed our conversation.